Hello, this is CWO4 Victor Pinion, U.S. Navy retired, telling some stories of my naval career. This one is a continuation of me reporting aboard the USS Midway CV41, home ported at Yokosuka, Japan. Well, I reported aboard and got my check-in sheet, but before I got checked in good, I went over to the capsule office and met the capsule rep, the full-time capsule rep. He'd been there for 4 months. He was a good man. He'd been a yard worker at San Francisco and then a NARF civilian at Alameda, California, where he was recruited to be a capsule rep and promptly sent to Japan because none of the other capsule reps wanted to be the permanent capsule rep living in Japan. He came on his regular go anywhere, anytime capsule orders, but they did not cut him permanent change of station orders, which did not qualify him, his wife was not qualified to fly to Japan. They were not qualified to move their household goods to Japan, nor to have housing in Japan. And she couldn't even get on the base without him escorting her aboard. She couldn't use the medical facilities there. Basically, she wasn't authorized to be in Japan as a DOD-sponsored person. He also told me that they had not sent his paycheck for the first 3 months that he was there. He had had to borrow money from the ship's crew to live on before they finally cut him PCS orders. And he had been living in the bachelor officer's quarters, which is regular go anywhere, anytime capsule orders qualified him for. Well, he told me some horror stories about the Midway, where I'd already heard a bunch of them. And before I checked in for duty, I was walking along the flight deck, and I noticed the catapult crew doing some very sloppy workmanship of installing the catapult trough covers on the number 2 catapult. And I noticed that there were big, thick rust scales on the hanging lips of the trough covers and on the track channels where you physically mount the trough covers to the catapult trough. They were setting them down in place and they would be all jacked up on that rust scale, and they were running a forklift back and forth over them, trying to crush the rust scale enough to get the trough covers down to get the bolts in, for God's sakes. I stopped them from doing that and asked them who was in charge. Well, the men doing the work didn't know. They didn't know who was in charge. And they pointed down the cat track to a more senior airman. I went down and asked him. He said, Wade. ABE-1 Wade. Where is he? He's down below decks. I went down and found Wade, and he was there talking with the first class petty officer that was going to relieve him as the cat captain, and Wade was going to transfer to shore duty. I asked him about the trough covers and how I'm installing them up there, and he said, oh, all right. I said, well, listen. I said, they're not cleaning the rust scale off of that. They need to scrape that rust scale off, wire brush it, clean out the bolt holes, tap them out, and put a light coat of grease on those rails and on the hanging lips of the trough covers before they install them, each cover. See to it that that gets done. I'm the new bosun. Okay, so I left them and I went on checking in. I went back and took a break in checking in, went to the maintenance office. Here sits the capsule rep in my office waiting for me. He asked me, he said, did you tell the cat crew to grease those truck covers up there? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I stopped him. I said, you what? He says, I stopped him from doing it. I said, why? And he told me they had not cleaned any rust scale. They're not pulling the covers that they'd installed and crushed the rust and trying to get them down. What they'd done is taken a 5-gallon bucket of catapult foot pad grease and a regulation Navy swab, like you swab the deck with, goosed it down in the grease, and they were mopping the track covers, the side rails, and the cat tracks with those great gobs of foot pad grease. And I said, well, thank you, Larry, for stopping them. Then I went straight on up and I found the cat captain and his relief. Come here. Did you go up there? No. I just sent an airman up there and told them that you said to grease those track covers. They didn't know what to do it, you know. So they just swabbing it down with foot paint. I said, well, come here. We went up there and great gobs of grease everywhere. I says, now here's what I want you to do. And I want you to gather up your cat crew and I'm going to explain to you what I require. Number one, clean all of this old grease this new grease that you've swabbed on it, clean it all off. Clean every bit of it up. And then you scrape and wire brush all of the rust off of these. And then you take whatever tools you can and clean the rust scale out of the bolt holes and run a tap down in each and every one of them. And then wire brush each trough cover where they made against those rails. And put a light coat of grease on them with a paint brush, with a grease brush, not swab great gobs. And set them back in place one at a time. Pull all the ones you've already installed and redo them. Now that's what I want you to do. And then I left. Well, they did it, but they griped about it. And so I went over and checked in and meeting people in the division and the air department and key people that I'd be doing business with. And there's a lot more to this reporting board story that I'll tell in the follow-on story. Y'all carry on.